Hey, what's up, guys? So we're back with some questions and answers. I left it for a good few days to get a few questions in, and so I'm got three questions. Again, I'm trying to hopefully get some of the questions intertwined. So today, got some interesting questions. Yeah, you guys are really testing me now. So we'll start off with Adam's one, and possibly some of the answers that I give for one might even, hopefully, will interrelate. So let's just go with it. We could go down a rabbit hole with this. So Adam, I've started the 100 days of hand conditioning. What about forearms and shins? Should I finish the hands and then do the 100 days of arms and then do the shins? Or should I focus on hands and do a little of the others at the same time? Actually, a good question. So those of you who aren't familiar with Iron Hand, really quick overview. Traditionally with Iron Hand training, Iron Palm, I differentiate between the two. Iron Palm training is more relaxed and has a different method to like hand conditioning where you're tensing up more and you're just thumping the hand with hard strikes, maybe using the heel of the palm instead of the flat slap of the palm. So a slapping of the hands is Iron Palm, where a slamming in of the wrist and a slamming of the hammer fist and stuff I would refer to as hand conditioning. Not saying one is better than the other, I just have different methods and I do both. Nonetheless, with both versions, whatever version you're doing, Adam, 100 days is the typical length of time to get a foundation in the art. Within that 100 days, usually it's males doing it, that you would refrain from ejaculation in those 100 days, and that you would use the ointment, the dajal, on the hands, possibly even using the soaking herbs if you're doing the traditional method of it. So should you then do that and then do another 100 days for your hands and shins, or for your forearms and shins? So here's my view on it, that no, you don't need to do the 100 days for your forearms and shins. They're bigger bones, and they're a lot more robust, okay, so they can within reason handle a lot more, so you don't go and smash the shit out of them. When I'm talking shin conditioning, light shin conditioning as opposed to going out and kicking a tree and making bits of your shins. So I'm presuming you're referring to just light conditioning of those limbs. So personally, I would say you can do those at the same time as your hand conditioning, as long as it's not excessive. The idea of the 100 days is that you are making damages to the body and that you're using all your internal resources to help recover from it. This, the Chinese also say it builds up a pearl of qi, of energy, by not wasting your jing. So by not having sex or ejaculating, that you're boosting the body's immune system and boosting the body's energy to allow you to recover. Now, will that give you some form of magical energy that you can hit someone with? No. And that's where people kind of get confused with it. I just need enough energy in order to recover properly from the exercises, and the shins and forearms can take a lot more of a bit of a battering. So you don't need to do the 100 days if you're going to do those. But now there are some arts that focus on purely like iron arm or iron shin. I have done iron arm training, but I've never done iron shin training. So do they do the 100 days with the iron shin style training? There's an old kicking style in China that Mantis has taken a lot of the kicking movements from. In fact, there's a very good documentary on it. I might attach it in the comments section, and you'll see practitioners sitting in holes and soaking their shins in medicine. Now, do they do the 100 days when they do that type of conditioning? I don't know. Maybe a viewer might know and tell me. So that's my view on it. No, you don't need to do an extra 100 days for your forearms and your shins. You can do it, tip away a little bit at it whilst you're doing your hands. Again, the main thing is that when you're doing like your 100 days of Iron Hand training, Iron Palm training, that your nutrition, your sleep, all these things are right, because of the excessive amounts of damage that you're doing to your hands, and the main thing is to recover from them. And again, your hands, your dexterity of your hands is very important, especially in the old days with manual labor, that if you damage your hands, you couldn't use them as such, the dexterity goes as a problem. In Chinese medicine terms, the energy pathways, the Jinhua coming into the hands are quite strong, so you don't want to disrupt or damage your energy flow. That's something else, whether you believe that or not. So hopefully that answered that. Anthony. So Anthony made a nice comment on one of my videos and asked a question, so bear with me, I'll just go through his comment. Wow, I loved watching your explanation of the reverse punch. I wasn't able to comment because of YouTube comments were turned off. I was intrigued by the 45 degree angular configuration of the fist upon impact. 45 degrees. Also was interested in the breath expansion upon impact. If you watch Bruce Lee closely, you'll see his fist is in the oblique position upon impact also. I didn't know that. Thank you very much, and still keep meaning to have a look and check that out. Also, what knuckle should be used upon target contact in using this punch? The top two we use. Also, I think if you watch Manny Pacquiao punching, he has a lot of consistencies with your punching concepts. Again, cool, thank you very much. I didn't know, I'll have to have a look at it. The question is the rear foot. Should you keep the rear foot? You keep the rear foot in contact with the floor. However, I see a lot of powerful boxers twist off the rear foot, but actually move the rear foot half a step forward whilst punching. Okay, so Anthony, good point. So first question I hope I answered. These two we make contact with in this type of punch, the two main knuckles here. Again, the whole hand needs to be conditioned, because when that's going to be the initial contact, but everything's going to eventually make contact as it drives in, particularly in softer target areas. So with the rear foot, it's an interesting concept. I've had a lot of back and forth with this myself. So the basic idea is that when my heel's pushing into the ground, my back heel doesn't absorb some of the force that bounces back in. Now, if you're always going to have your back foot flat when you're trying to strike, in my opinion, when you're moving around, you're going to be very flat-footed. You're going to be slow, okay? And it doesn't matter how big and strong and powerful your punch is. If it can't hit the target, it's worthless. So if you're too slow on your feet, it's pointless even having that punch. And that's a big problem in traditional martial arts, is that we train certain techniques up that actually have no combat value. When you go to combat, they can't be used, and it's just pointless. So is this rear foot one of them? Something I've been looking at. So in I've done Xingyi, and Xingyi we bring the foot up as well. So the rear foot, for a basic rundown, I look at it as when you're moving around, you have to bridge the gap. You know, two of you have to get close together. So either he's going to step into me, I'm going to step into him. Hey, we both might step in together, or we might be in close striking range and we're slugging it out. Okay. Now I like to use the back foot planted down when they move into me. So I might slip off. I might slip a little bit back. I use that back foot driven into the ground because I'm not having to. I just solidify and hold my base for a second to give a very powerful counter punch. Now, if I'm moving forward, so the person is out of reach, keeping my flat foot down means that I'm going to extend my front foot and I'm going to be too extended. So I use the back foot to push down off the heel to give me the power to drive forward. And it's all about timing now. Depending on how far the person is from me, does my fist land at the same time that my foot pushes off? It means they're going to have to be a lot closer. If they're a lot further away from me, I'll use my back foot to drive off. So like the heel in the steps or in the blocks of a runner, I drive the foot into the ground to propel me forward, and the momentum of that drives into my strike. Now, we could look at target areas. You know, if your heel is down or up when you punch someone in the face, is it going to make much of a difference? Not terribly. You know, the idea is that when the heel down, for every action, there is equal and opposite reaction. And Wing Chun instructor in England, Sifu Trevor, he during, I think it was one of the Wing Chun conferences in England, he talked about this concept, and he's actually done an experiment with it. I don't know the machine. I'll see if I can find an attachment to the experiment, or maybe he can share it if I contact him. He had a graph, so he had, because Wing Chun has kind of sits on the back leg a little bit and has the foot planted down as well. Slight punching different with the elbow down, but the idea was that when he hit this, he hit a pad connected to like a power graph. What happened was when the force hit, the power went up, you could see the first strike, but then it bounced back and forward, and this is the force going back from the ground and back through the structure the whole bunch of times it bounces. So, you know, if I throw a tennis ball at a ball, when it hits and it bounces back, there's an interaction of energy. For every force, there's an equal and opposite reaction force, but it goes hundreds of times, loads of times before it goes off. Now, he had a boxer hit, and the boxer obviously moved forward, swung his waist and stuff like that, and his peak went up further. So let's say the foot went up further, but it had a massive drop down. So we could look at that when the foot is down, it does create more of a penetrating force where it hits and it keeps going backwards and forwards. You know, to me, in my opinion, this is what, when people refer to like internal type strikes, is you're hitting and that force bounces a bit afterwards a little bit, which goes a little bit deeper in. So very good for torso strikes. For head strikes, you know, you move and you just slam through. You know, all you need to do is get the head moving off the neck, and you can create a knockout. I don't necessarily need that bounce back. The head's going to bounce away anyway, a lot more than maybe the torso. So I use both of them, and as I said, I keep to the main idea, the back foot planted when someone's moving a little bit into me. At times, depending on you know, the height of the person, how I want to strike, or I drive that back foot off the ground to propel me forward to give me enough momentum and speed to get more power into the strike. So when I train on the Makiwara, I tend to have the back foot planted to begin with, and that's how I teach people to begin striking the Makiwara. But the Makiwara isn't moving, and now we have to start then playing around. So then I start stepping back and stepping in and hitting the Makiwara, so then my back heel changes with it. I also change feet and hit with it later on, and then the power generation is different. So you have to be flexible with it. I don't believe saying the back foot has to be planted all the time with the strike moving backwards or forward is correct, simply because it's not viable in combat to always do that. Okay, I think if I've got a hammer and I have my back foot planted and I drive a slam, and I might get a good bit of power. Now, if I raise the heel and I swing with more momentum, I swing around, maybe I can't receive as much of the shock back, but I create a bit more speed and a bit more torque, which takes it balances out the cons and pros of it. And I think within traditional martial arts, sometimes we can learn to swat a fly with a hammer. My idea is that sometimes we get to the point where we try to you're focusing on getting something so powerful or so good that you sometimes forget the other concepts. That if you can't move fast and you're not agile and it's pointless. You may as well, you know, if I've got a punch that's let's say a maximum of 100, it's got to, that's what we're going to quantify it as, 100. But I can't hit nothing with it. Okay, but then if I just gave up on that technique, changed the technique a little bit, and it's only got a quality of 50 power, but I can hit you whenever I want with it. You know, which one's going to be more viable in combat? Okay, so we have to weigh those things up. I just made up an example there, so hopefully it makes sense. So I have a lot of back and forth with the heel. It's interesting when I go through my my forms and some systems like Wing Chun that has the foot on the back driving forward. Then Xingyi uses it again. Your timing, the distance someone is to you. Dictates the timing of your technique, you know, and like I say to someone, how far is the shop? The shop's 2 minutes away. We often give distance in time, so that further the person is from me or closer, they dictate the timing of my techniques, and then my own body timing. So do I drive off the back foot and then halfway through the technique, or do I start to throw the technique and then drive from the back foot, a bit more like fencing? These all change how your back foot, what is it doing? Is it the brace for the power, or is it the using it to move forward? And how the technique exactly lands upon impact will differ depending on the distance of the person, the distance of your limb compared to them. What technique have you slipped under? Have you covered? I used to get a lot more bogged down about it. I don't too much now. My main concern would be, can you actually land the technique first? That's the most important. I spend a lot of time striking the makiwara, but a person moves. So I think the main thing would be to play around with it, and you might find that, like you said, you mentioned boxes. Speed and power and torque is very important. You need to be able to hit and move. And being flat-footed, or you look at Mike Tyson, the way he talked, and then sometimes he could have his feet a little bit flat and then move around. I think a combination of both is very important. So I hope I answered that, rattled on a little bit. So we've got Kevin. So Kevin's got an interesting question, and maybe it ties in with a little bit of the first question I got with Adam. Greetings, sir. Very nice of you. Don't need to call me sir. Only Mark. But thank you very much for being polite. Greetings, sir. I learned Ma-Wei Chi Bagua and Chen style Tai Chi from Sifu McNeil. So I've also learned those styles. And Shingi and Splashing Hands. I've also learned those styles. And several other systems from John Wyman. I have trained with other local schools before that. When I started the internal styles, he has in commas there, inverted commas, there was attention placed on Jing cultivation and sexual chi and life force. What is your perspective on Jing to Qi, Qi to Shen, Shen to Shu? I'm presuming you're just the way you're writing it, I think you mean that, so I'll explain that in a second. And Taoist lovemaking and sexual meditation. So thanks, Kevin, and thanks for making comments on my videos. I know we've had a little bit of a chat before. So very interesting question. Obviously, in Chinese medicine terms, we have Jing, like your essence, and then Qi, your energy, and Shen, your spirit. And there's a saying in Chinese medicine that your Jing, your primordial energy, turns into Qi, and then your Qi turns into your Shen, your spirit. Now, this is a concept in Chinese medicine, and in Chinese medicine, they believe that you cannot replenish your Jing. Once it's over, once it's finished, that's what aging is. We can conserve it by the way we eat and the way we conduct ourselves physically, and how sleep and eat and breathe, that we can conserve it, but it naturally deplenishes. And obviously, the healthier we live, the slower we deplenish it, but it's nonetheless will deplenish. If it didn't deplenish, we would die. Lots of forms and schools of Taoist Qigong believe that you can do a full cycle, you can replenish the Jing, and I presume that you're referring to there that Jing to Qi, Qi to Shen, and Shen to Shu, emptiness, back to emptiness. Okay, firstly, my opinion on this is that one of the biggest problems in Chinese martial arts, and as you said, the internal styles, is they start to layer over Chinese medicine with the martial arts, and that's what just all fucks it up completely. In my opinion, it has no place in the martial arts. And once we go down this rabbit hole, this is where we get people teaching like crazy shit that has nothing to do with martial arts. Now, I coach athletes that do different sports and stuff like that, and cultivating their energy is an important part of it. So maybe we're doing it in a Western way. I address their sleep, address their nutrition. Like, maybe you need to go down the woods and breathe and relax. Maybe you need to do some yoga or meditation. So it isn't that it's a new concept in even our sports. And so maybe this was the Chinese martial arts way of ensuring that the practitioner stayed balanced. But what happens is with a lot of internal schools, they then overlay this concept so much so that it overtakes the physical training of it. And probably there's no way to quantify this. Is your teacher tells you all that, like, okay, at least with martial techniques, I can see. Okay, we'll go on the mat. We'll train. I'll know if you can do your stuff or not, because I'll feel it. I'll see it. But when we start going down this realm, it's all kind of, I don't know. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. It's very, it's a problem with people teaching these types of qigong and higher levels of meditation, all this type of stuff. My experience, 9 times out of 10, the people are full of shit, and that they're just linking onto this other stuff to take away from the basic real training. Whether it's true or not, it doesn't really change the concept of how you're training, in the sense that if Jing Qi, Jing to Qi, Qi to Shen, Shen to emptiness, whether you believe that or not, your training methodology should still be the same. It shouldn't really change too much, and our focus should be on the martial arts, our breathing, our focus, our strengthening exercises. So Taoist lovemaking and sexual meditation, the concepts of conserving your Jing are very important, but these are other arts that have no place in Kung Fu. Now, it's like me training my kettlebell athletes, and that, let's say I'm involved in some form of religion, and then bringing the religious concepts into my kettlebell training. They're separate. They shouldn't be there. And I feel that's what's happened with this types of, say, Taoist lovemaking and sexual meditation. Yes, there are aspects of, say, some forms of Taoist sex, and often martial arts trained them because maybe they made them feel more balanced. Maybe they felt that they really made them feel more healthy, and then when they started teaching their students, they're like, this is really important, it really helped me. But then over time, some schools, they place more emphasis on this than the actual martial arts, and you're like, I joined a martial arts school not to learn this stuff, and this is my problem with it. So, and to be honest with you, there is absolutely no proof that I'm aware of that people practicing these are any better fighters. I can give a story of, I will obviously leave the school and the club. I'll even leave out the country I was in, so there's no way, because I've trained with lots of people and I don't want to ever insult people, but this will give an example. That I was training with a group that emphasized a lot of the high levels of Qigong and this and that. I wasn't ready for that yet, so, when we did things, you need to go stand over there and you can't see them. All right, okay. But then when we came to doing applications, and I was doing applications and some sparring techniques with the guys, there was no, there was no difference whatsoever. Their strikes were not more powerful. They didn't move quicker. There was absolutely nothing about them. We trained them every day that we woke up. They didn't have more energy than me. They weren't fitter and stronger than me. I was the reverse way around, so I was just like, well, I don't see any physical proof in this. More just they seemed a bit more fucking mental, and more like they were heads in the sky, believing in these types of magic power. Now, I'm qualified in Chinese medicine, and I understand the concept to it, and it is an important concept in health. But I think the biggest problem with Chinese martial arts is that over time they've liked to bring in concepts of Chinese medicine and Chinese martial arts to make their stuff sound more intellectual, to sound more deeper, and to sound better than it is, So we see it all the time, people bringing over the 5 element theory into Xingyi, and all these theories, and it's got nothing to do with combat. The Bagua, within the Bagua, art of Bagua, so people start even studying the 80, the trigrams and everything like that. That ain't gonna change your fighting when you've got someone in front of you, and you're gonna tell them this fucking future. You're not gonna be able to. You're gonna have to be able to fight. And it's like they start to, I'm reading something actually on praying mantis, and You read how they start the Chinese text starts saying, oh, these our arts are very deep and meaningful, and basically more meaningful than in the Western martial arts. And you're like, as far as I'm aware, I've never heard of China beating a country that's every country that's invaded China won. Okay, so how good with your martial arts? There's very little proof of Chinese martial arts winning in combat. So their highest theory, but they get smashed by boxers and wrestlers and everyone else. So it's like, well, you've got all this high level theory of this high level stuff, but where's the proof? There isn't any. So this is where I'm coming from. It's not that I say that I don't believe it. But it just makes no odds to me when I'm training my martial arts. I don't consider it and don't say, I'm going to do standing meditation here. I'm going to convert my Jing to Qi and Qi to Shen. It's like that's not what I'm doing. I'm doing a martial arts, and then every exercise that we practice has to have a practical application. Now maybe I'm doing some breathing and relaxing exercise, or breathing and relaxing me, and these things should happen by themselves anyway. Yeah, there are some forms of meditation that we focus on certain areas, but even then I start getting a little bit cagey with it, because this is where it veers off, and this is where I feel that there has been so much misinterpretation and so many frauds within Chinese martial arts, because we overlay this area into the internal stuff. Because Kevin, I've been there, and I've been to schools as well where they emphasize this type of training, but then you go to professional, like, as I say, like a train with like pro MMA guys and stuff like that, and like that stuff ain't gonna, that theory ain't gonna hold shit. You ain't gonna be, it's gonna make no difference to the. And then when you ultimately look at how they live their lives and how the guys that have become very, very skilled at martial arts, this concept of they'll be a lot more relaxed. They'll be aware of their food and their sexual conduct because of energy. They're aware of it. A lot of this stuff, I think, if you do the martial arts, this process happens by itself and happens. And I think traditionally that's what it was about. And over time, though, we've got people that are teaching it without actually having experienced it through the training. And you just do the training. And I think a lot of the benefits that we talk about from martial arts, whether it be spiritual or physical, come about them by themselves through the hard training. And I think it would be better not to be aware of them and be told about them, just to do the training. So that's my view on it. People might say, well, I'm not very high level then. I don't really understand the stuff. All right, okay, cool. I've got the diplomas and degrees in Chinese medicine to prove that I have done the study, and I've certainly done the training. From my numerous years of training, I found it to be neither here nor there. It didn't really make a difference whether I knew it or not, because it just didn't make any changes to how we trained and what the results were, certainly not on a practical level. And then over time I've just realized that this type of theory in martial arts is one of the biggest causes of it becoming very cultish and very not practical, just fucking weird, to be honest with you. These things are there. I've done numerous forms of Qigong, and my understanding of this, I'm aware of it, and a lot of I do practice. But is it an aspect of my class? No, when I train, no. And I don't think it should be. I think martial arts should be left to martial arts, and the other stuff to other stuff, and people have a choice. I don't think they should be intermingled. Guys, thank you very much. Some super interesting questions. And me going on. I know the next question will be, Mark, why do you practice martial arts if you think it's so impractical? I enjoy doing it, and it makes me feel good. It makes me, but yeah, I don't think it's the most practical, in the sense of a lot of its theory and a lot of the absolute trash that you read from, as I say, I'm reading some other stuff, and the stuff they talk about within the Chinese martial arts, you're just like, you know, if I can, they have these ideas. One of them was the guy came in and he challenged the teacher, and then he moved towards him and he disappeared and then reappeared behind him, and then he moved and he just couldn't touch. You're like, yeah, you know, they like to make up stories, and you know, they always big up people. You know, their teacher could do this, their teacher could do that, and then you have people that believe this shit. You know, it's just we've got to understand the culture. That's what we do. We have a saying: we don't speak ill of the dead. You know, I think in China, it's they not only don't speak ill of the dead, they make shit up about the dead. They make them sound better. They could do more of these things. They you know, should we all do it? You know. We exaggerate things. I went fishing and I caught a fish this big. You know, we exaggerate, and over time these things have exaggerated, and people's skill sets have been exaggerated. What they could do because they exaggerate. You know, I don't believe that. You know, why people say that people could do things in the past that we can't do today. Bullshit. That's not the case, and free, you know, avenues of combat have proved that by UFC and things like that. We've given people their opportunity to go and show it, and they can't, and it hasn't been shown. And people will come up with all excuses. We can't. We know people of old didn't necessarily could do better things than we can today. There's exceptional people out there. You just have to go to YouTube and watch some of the combat sport athletes today. Like, some lads do unbelievable things. You know, I've seen lads run up walls and jumping, spin, kick in real combat applications. You know, these are things that if they were done in the old days, there'd be books and legends written about them. I think we just need to kind of always bring ourselves back to reality, and take everything that we read from another culture with a pinch of salt, and then not be drawn in by these people selling snake's oil to us that charge exorbitant amounts of money for stuff that basically hones in on people that are gullible to this type of thing, because we would all like to feel that we could become super powerful and supernatural and that we're special through these special methods. But when we start doing real combat with real athletes, you just realize, just fucking forget all that stuff and just get on with the training, and that the other stuff is neither here nor there. So guys, thank you very much. Thank you very much for putting these questions towards me, and I hope I haven't come across as a dickhead. I'm just like, this is what I view it, and this is how I train. And guys, thank you very much. We all have different views, so I hope I haven't insulted anyone. I don't mean to be insulting. That's just the way I think, and I'm aware that many people have different opinions than me, and they have different values than me, and certain things are more important to them than me, and that's cool. That's okay. Again, I can only base my opinions on my own experiences, which I'm aware is limited to my age and the people I've come in contact with. So I'm always willing to learn. I always am adjusting my opinions on things as I learn. And if you ask me these same questions in 10 years' time, I would like to think that I would give you a different answer. If I didn't give you the same answer, that would mean that I'm 100% right now, or that I didn't grow. And I can't say that I'm 100% right now. So guys, thank you very much.